Hello and welcome to another daily live AM language lesson. In this lesson today, we are going to look at how to answer job interview questions. So this should be quite good. We'll look at a range of different types of questions, but we'll try and stick to fairly common and main questions, and we'll look to see how we can answer them. And if you have ever been asked certain questions, feel free to share those questions in the live comment section so we can then discuss them and how we can answer. We'll also look at answering how to answer questions whereby you can keep fluency going. One of the big problems is sometimes losing your thinking too much, not knowing what the words or not knowing what words you need, and then the flow of your interview is affected. So we'll look at little speaking techniques that you would learn in something like IELTS, for example, or doing the Cambridge exam. That could really help you with your overall fluency and your ability to make sure that you answer the question. So we will look at those techniques as well. Evelina says, hi. Hi, Evelina. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lesson. Thank you for joining. I hope you're doing well. The sun is out. It's another hot day. I mean, I don't think it's as hot as yesterday. I think today is a little bit, I think there's a bit more of a wind, but I think it's okay though. Again, it's probably the best place to be in Malta is at the beach. The numbers are steadily climbing, so we'll wait a few more minutes before we continue. I hope you all had a good lessons today. I hope you had a good morning lesson. And if you had an intensive class, I hope you enjoyed your intensive class. Irina, good afternoon. Thank you for coming. It's nice to see you again. Evelina says, yes, it's very hot. Yes, it is very hot. I think this is the thing, though, about Malta. It's such a hot country in the summer that it becomes a little bit too hot at times. I think the nicest time of the day is probably between 5 and 8 o'clock in the evening. I think that might be the nicest time of the day to be outside. Obviously, you can be outside, during, like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, but the sun is really, really strong. So yeah, you just want to be in this. You just want to be in the sea at that time. Okay, we'll give people a few more minutes, and then we'll continue. So, guys, as this is going to be, we're going to look at job interview questions. We're going to look at how you can answer these questions. We're going to look at speaking techniques, and we're going to look at some questions as well. If you have any specific questions about this, if there are any questions you have been asked in the past, let me know in the live chat section, and we can look at them and we can explore what we think the answer might be. So those things we can do. We can look at. Okay, so I think one of the things that we'll also, like I said, we're going to look at some speaking techniques that we can use from the exam class, the type of exam class English lessons that you could have, like IELTS, Cambridge, and these speaking techniques come in handy when you are in a job interview. So let's first of all, let's look at the type of questions we're going to look at today. Now, we did look at some job interview questions about yourself yesterday, so we're not going to repeat them, but we are going to look at these type of questions. The first question that you might sometimes get, which is an annoying question, is where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? This is a very annoying question, which people sometimes ask, and it's worth looking at just to see how do you answer a question like this. Another type of question that it's worth looking at is, for example, can you give me an example of your ability to solve problems? Again, this is now asking you for a specific story of your past, of how you can solve problems. So we'll look at that question because it is a question that can be asked. And then the other question that we're going to look at is, how do you ask questions? So that will be the third question that we can look at. How do you ask questions? And this will cover these sort of things. How do you ask questions? So this is to do with topics such as how much you're going to be paid, hours, well, I should say working hours, and then one or two other things as well. So we'll look at those two. We'll definitely look at those two, and if there's time, we'll look at some more. So we're not going to look at lots and lots, but we're going to focus on quality. So let's dive in with the first one. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? This is a difficult question because, of course, we don't know is the answer. We don't know where what you will be doing in 5 years' time. And I think that is a mistake. I would say, first of all, don't try and answer this question with specifics, like saying, I see myself working for you. I see myself living in New York, or I see myself being a director of a company. I think those type of specific answers might be a little bit dangerous. I think the best way to look at this is from a skill-based and qualification-based answer. Now, I'll just write that in and then I'll explain what I mean. Skill-based and qualification-based answer. There's a third one as well, which you can add, which is also experience-based. Okay, so I'll just explain what I mean by this. Now, skill, qualification, and experience is I think speaks for itself. What do I mean by based? It's the structure. Okay, so based is the structure of your answer. So if we are giving a skill-based answer, we're saying this is a skilled, structured answer. So I'm going to talk about the skills I will have. I'm going to talk about the experience I will have and my qualifications that I will have. So really, we're looking at your future development. That is the important thing. So this way, you're not going to end up giving specifics about, oh, I'm going to be doing this job, and I'm going to be earning this amount of money, and I'm going to live here. It's too specific, and it's not realistic. Those factors are not in your control. So we need to look at factors that are in your control. So what I'd like you guys to do here is just think of some examples for yourself. What skills are in your control, for example? I don't know my future. I don't want to think about the future. I live day by day. Well done, Evelina. That's a good idea. Live in the present, as people say. So what we're looking at here is, like I said, we're not trying to predict what we'll do, but we are trying to predict we're trying to say what our future development will be like. So for example, what skills oh gosh, I didn't write that properly, sorry. And we can relate this, we can talk about what you guys are doing in Malta learning English. So what skills can you learn that will help you? And we're looking at realistic skills. So the first example here is language skill. You are learning English. So part of this answer is I will, for instance, you can start off by saying, so where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Well, you know that you're learning English. So you can start off by saying, I see myself being able to have a job where I need to speak English well. And this is a good answer. You're not telling the person what job you're going to do, but you're going to tell them that you would be in a position, even from now, maybe, where you can have a job where you need to speak English well. Most of you probably can already have a job where you need to speak English. If you are of a certain level, let's say pre-intermediate to intermediate, you can get a lot of basic jobs already. You can work in cafes, for example. But answering the question with a skill like I see myself being able to have a job where I need to speak English well is a good answer, and it shows direction. Another example maybe might be skills in terms of managing skills, for example. And managing skills can include some other things as well. So I see myself being in a position to manage a team properly. Now I'll explain some of this language. This is a good answer. I see myself. This is a good phrase to use. I've used it before already. I see myself. This is a good way of talking about yourself. I see myself, and we can use it to talk about the future, and we can also use it to talk about the present as well. But I see myself, when we use this, I see myself plus being able to, okay? Plus being able to, or I see myself managing. What we are looking at here is either myself plus verb ing. You always need to go in with the verb ing, okay? Or I put it verbing. Evelina says it would be important to be able to talk about hours or payment. Absolutely, Evelina. And we need to know how to do that. So we will look at that later. We will look at that later on. And I will explain to you how you can ask those questions properly in English, because they can be difficult. And if you don't feel confident, it can be a difficult thing to talk about. So this is the structure. I see myself plus verb ing. I see myself doing. I see myself living. I see myself being. I see myself managing. This is important. So that's what you go with. Now, how to talk about qualifications. Now, you guys, again, are learning English, for example. So you can start off with that. I see myself having an English qualification, for example, that would allow me. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about would. So I see myself having an English qualification that would allow me to take on more responsibility. Okay, now I'll just explain some of this language, and I want to concentrate a little bit on would. So I see myself plus verb ing having an English qualification. Now you could replace English for other types of qualifications: marketing qualification, engineering qualification, medical qualification. That would allow me to. This is important. So after qualification, that would allow me to Now, why am I using this? You're using would to talk about a hypothetical situation with a probability. Okay, so what do I mean? I didn't spell that right. Probability. What am I talking about? Why would? Well, I can't use, I have to be careful. You can use will, that's an option, and will is with more certainty. Your other option is would. Would, as you know from your second conditional, if you have learned your second conditional, talks about hypothetical future situations, for example. So you could use either would or will. That will allow me to, or that would allow me to. Now, the word allow is important. It means imagine the door is open to you. It's a reality. It becomes a reality. It becomes a possibility. So that would allow me to take on more responsibility. What do I mean by take on? Well, take on is a phrasal verb, and take on simply means in this context would allow me to have. That's what it means. I have the qualification of Secretary of Administration. Wow, Evelina, well done. That sounds like a really good qualification to have. Secretary of Administration. Okay, I can see why you are learning English. It's probably a useful, a good skill to have. So let me know what your answer would be. It's kind of asking that question, why would English be good for you in that sense? So that's a good example to have. And finally, how can you use language to talk about your experience you would have? Okay, I see myself. Okay, we've used a lot of I see myself. In 5 years time, 5 years time, comma, I will have the necessary experience to whatever, such as to let's see, what sort of position? I keep on going for the same positions. To manage a department, for example. Now, what's the important language going on here? So where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? You go with, okay, in 5 years' time. That's your time marker, effectively. I will. Now, you could change that to other modal verbs, but I would say go with will. I will have the necessary experience. Now, what is necessary experience? If I say something is necessary, I'm saying needed or required. Maybe a must almost, okay? Must have experience to manage a department. So all of these examples are really good ways of how you can answer that first question without having to be too specific. So this is these are your techniques. So it's important to use terms like I see myself plus verb ing, and to relate that question to either a skill, qualification, or experience-based answer. So let me know in your own words how you would answer that question. If I asked you guys, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time in the live chat, try and answer that question. Have a go and see what you guys come out with. Okay. So feel free to answer that question at any time. Now, we've got two more things to look at, which is, can you give me an example of your ability to solve problems, and how do you ask questions? Now, when it comes to, can you give me an example of your ability to solve problems? First of all, we need to make sure that we use the past simple, and we just need to make sure we look at some important phrases. So this is the question here. Can you give me an example of your ability to solve problems? Okay, what you can do here is, first of all, you need to use the past simple. Now, I'm not going to try and help you out with the detail of your answer, but what I am going to give you is some phrases that can help you answer this question. So the first phrase I'm going to the first phrase I'm going to give you is a thinking phrase. Okay, now a thinking phrase is the term I'm using. What I mean is a phrase that gives you time to think of your answer while not being completely silent. Evelina says, in the past, I worked in a furniture store and later at the airport as a counter hostess. Wow. So Evelina, you had a lot of work experience where you had to really deal with people, very much people-based jobs. So we can have a little look at an answer here. So can you give me an example of your ability to solve problems? So a thinking phrase. A good one is, good question. That's a good start. Or you can go with, interesting question. Or finally, you could go with a phrase such as, let me see. You've got these phrases, and these phrases you can say slowly. These phrases give you thinking time, such as, and it's all about your pronunciation. So, good question, for example. Good question, good question. Or, interesting question, interesting question, interesting question. Or finally, let me see, let me see, let me see. All of these show that you are thinking of your answer. You simply say these phrases very slowly. Not so slowly that the person is going to fall asleep, but slowly giving you enough time to think of what your answer is going to be. So this is why these phrases are good. It gives you time to think. So you might say, let me see. Well, and then you go into your answer. Now, how do you start off your answer? So you've got a few other phrases. I remember once. I remember once. So this is one situation. So I remember once, and usually after this phrase, you're going to go with a verb ing. Okay, this is quite a typical. This is quite a typical sort of way of doing it. So let me see. I remember once being in a difficult situation with a customer, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Or another way of starting your phrase, your past simple sentence is, interesting question. I remember Okay, actually, you can go with once. I once had to. But this is type of language you can use when you want to give one simple example, okay? And you've got two ways of going about it. Let me see. I remember once, or, interesting question. Well, I once had to. Now, if you want a third option, where a problem kept on happening, it would be a daily problem. Okay, good question. I would, and then you want to use an adverb of frequency, such as I would often, I would sometimes, um, be faced with, um, and then you go in with your situation. Now, be faced with is a good phrase as well. Be faced with means another way of saying I would often have to do something. So, I mean, simple, you can either go with have to do something, or you can go with I would often be faced with something. Evelina says, I remember very arrogant people. Okay, so the way you can expand that is maybe, for example, Evelina, you can say, okay, let me see. I would often, okay, so you can say, I remember I would often have to deal with arrogant people. So you can say, for example, let me see. I remember. Okay, I remember. I remember have. I remember. Uh, I remember having to deal with some very arrogant people. So this is another way of answering that question. So let me see. I remember having to deal with some very arrogant people. I remember having, okay? I remember having to deal with. So remember, plus verb, ing, plus infinitive. Okay, it's a kind of a strange form in that sense. But that's your infinitive. Infinitive. There we go. That's better. So that's how you can do it. And that's one way of answering this question. Let me just see what your answer is going to be here. I'm going to write an incomplete answer, and then I want to see how you guys try to answer the question. Okay, so let's see. Um, let's see. Okay, have a go, guys. Try and complete that introduction. Okay, so let I wants to deal with some very difficult customers. So the words you need to think about is you need to think about that phrase, let I now we need to think of a word plus another word. And don't forget, guys, if you use remember, for example, if you think it's I remember once, for example, the word after once is going to have to be a verb with an ing. So let's see what you guys have to say with this. And then we'll move on to how you guys can ask questions and how you guys can talk about money, how much you're going to be paid, working hours, those sort of things. Okay. So let's see what you guys come out with, and we'll see. If you are, if you have any questions, just look through the live chat because you will see the answers to this question over here, and then we'll move on to the last one. Okay. Okay. Right. So, let me see. I remember having. Perfect. Well done, Valina. Well done. That is the correct answer. You've done an excellent job. Okay. So now let's move on to, and Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Welcome to today's lesson. Hi, Richard. So let me see. Remember having. Perfect. Well done, guys. Two very good answers. So let's move on to the last thing. How do you guys ask questions? And how do you ask questions that might be a bit difficult, like payment, working hours? So obviously you have to wait for the interview to go on for a certain period of time before asking these questions. But you can simply introduce your line of questioning with, if you don't mind, if you don't mind, I have some questions that I would like to ask. So, that I would like to ask. Now, this is good. If you don't mind, I have some questions if you don't mind, I have some questions that I would like to ask. Okay. Now, if you don't mind is very, very polite. If you don't mind, I have some questions that I would like to ask. Now, what this does is it's a polite way of telling the person, can I ask some questions? That's all. But you need to get the intonation right. So you need to go, if you don't mind, if you don't mind, if you don't mind. Say this slowly. If you don't mind. I have some questions that I would like to ask. So the words you need to stress, mind, some, so mind, some. If you don't mind, I have some questions I would like to ask. There are 3 words you need to stress. When you stress, slow down. So if you don't mind, I have some questions that I would like to ask, ask. Okay, so those are your 3 main words that you need to stress. You could add in a 4th with like, for example. Then, let's say you've got some questions. They're then going to say, yes, of course, go ahead. Now, how do you ask about money? Can I ask, what would the... Now, it depends on how the payment's going to be, because you've got different types of payment. So how would the... what would the, let's say, hourly rate be? So this is if you're going to be paid by the hour. So can I ask, what would the hourly rate be? Rate is payment, okay? In this, rate is payment. And this is talking about the hour. How much are you paid by the hour? So can I ask, what would the hourly rate be? Okay. Is it polite to ask for payment? If you've done a job, yes. Now, if you've done a job and you are going to be and you want to be paid, you can say you can do this in different ways. You can ask, for instance, can I ask who do I send the invoice to? For example, now, if you have done a job or if you're about to do a job, again, if you're private, So you don't work for them, but this is you freelance, for example. You can use the term invoice. So you send the bill basically to be paid. Here, for some companies, it is not very polite. Only after you can ask. Yeah, it can be. It's a difficult one to do. I would always say it's really important that before you do a job, obviously, that you know all of these things, and this is how you can do it. So if they are going to pay you and it's a contract, you can ask, can I ask what would the hourly rate be? You can also ask, can I ask what would the monthly salary be? Okay, so those are two ways that you can ask if you're going to be employed. If, however, you are self-employed and you are doing a job for someone, you can then say, for example, can I ask, who do I send the invoice to? Okay, so that they would know with the invoice, that means, okay, where do you're asking for how do you get paid as well. If you are a freelancer, by the way, and you want to talk about how much something costs, that's a little bit different. Okay, that would be for a separate thing. But if you have any questions about that, ask me, because usually that probably would be done in an email, I would imagine. And it's good to have it in an email, because then it's not a question of, oh, I thought you said. That's why I would always recommend payment agreement of a fee should be done by email. Okay, then working hours. Again, you can use this phrase, can I ask, what are the working hours? And if you want a follow-up question, you can ask, how much flexibility is there with the working hours? So these are two questions that you can ask. So important thing here. First, again, we go in with a polite, can I ask? What are the working hours? It's called an indirect question. And two, how much flexibility is there with the working hours? Flexibility, obviously, in this case means how much freedom do you have? Do you have to, if you need to take time off, if you are going to be late for work, if if it's depending on what type of job it is, that's asking, okay, if do I have to work every morning, or can I choose my own hours? Can I work at night? How many hours a week do I need to do? Do I have a choice over when I do those, when I work? So flexibility is an important word. It means how much control. You're asking how much control do you have over the hours you work and when you work. So that's why flexibility is a really important word. Okay, guys, so we're coming up to 5 minutes left. So I'm just going to give you guys the opportunity to ask me any questions that you would like me to answer or help you out with, maybe from your own experience. So we've looked at quite a few things today, but I'm going to give you guys the last 5 minutes of this lesson to ask me questions. Maybe you have, maybe you don't know how to ask certain questions. So feel free to try and ask me, and I will do my best to answer you. If there are phrases you kind of know, but you don't know when to use them, feel free to ask me that as well. So the last 5 minutes of this lesson is just going to be for you guys to ask me any questions. But like I said, guys, can I ask? Okay, if you start your question with "Can I ask?" This is polite. This is very polite. It's an indirect question, and it's a good way to answer to start off by asking difficult questions. Okay, so can I work from home? Yeah, So you can ask, for instance, can I ask, can I work from home? That is how you can do that. That's a good question to ask. Can I work from home? Excellent. Another thing as well is maybe you want to know about their support system. So you can ask, can I ask, what assistance do you offer if we work from home, for example? Can I ask what assistance do you offer if we have to travel, obviously for work? I mean, that you don't need to add for work because that should be obvious, but assistance is good. Assistance is a good word for help, and it's a word that you would use in the workplace. So can I ask what help? It's simply saying, what help do you offer if we have to travel for work? You will see here that we're going with a conditional sentence, a conditional question. And this is a zero conditional question. Can I ask, what assistance do you offer if we work from home? Can I ask, what assistance do you offer if we have to travel? Now, if you want to make it absolutely clear for work, you can add for work at the end. But if you're asking that question in a job interview, it should be clear you're talking about work. You can also go with, can I ask, what's your policy if we if an employee is sick? Okay, let's look at this question. This is a good one to know because here you're talking about sick leave. So another way of asking this is, can I ask, what is your policy on sick leave? Okay, so that's another way of asking this question. First of all, the important word here, policy, is rules. Okay, their rules. When it comes to sick leave, obviously, this is when you're sick. So you're too sick to work. Okay, so when you talk about policies, you're talking about their rules. And if it affects your payment, it shouldn't most of the time. Do you have to get a doctor's note? All these sorts of things. So this is a good question to know, to ask, and you can ask it by asking, can I ask, what's your policy if an employee is sick? Or can I ask, what is your policy on sick leave? So that is the correct term. Okay, guys, so make sure if you have enjoyed this lesson, if you have found this lesson helpful, make sure you like the video. And if you're new, subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions, just ask in the live chat section or ask in the comment section after the lesson. It's absolutely fine. Make sure you share the channel as well with people you know who are looking to learn English as well. I will be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the same time. With, what am I doing tomorrow? How to write work emails. Okay, so that's what we're looking at tomorrow. Irina says, thank you. You're welcome, Irina. You too, Evelina. Bye for now. Have a good evening. And I would like to say a big thank you to Evelina, Irina, Sandra, for their participation in today's lesson as well. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.